Okay, good morning. So we're on page 182 in the Maimore Milukotim, volume 3. The Maimer was said on the 21st of Kislev during the meal, the Suda. I assume it was a continuation of Yutas Kislev, 1940-41, Tafshin Aleph. He begins with the Gemara Amar about Kisadroi. About Kisadroi says, whoever learns Torah Lishma, Loimed or Shaina, which are the more conventional, are they, on a spiritual level, which, he'll discuss, I assume, some of that or all of that later. And one other question that he asks is, what does it mean to learn Torah Lishma? What does that mean? Torah Lishma. Well, we know halachically, Talmudically what Torah Lishma is, but in a spiritual sense, what does that mean? It's a study of godliness. In Hebrew, we call that elikus. Elokus. It's not, Chasidus is not a book of me. You talk about divinity. If you talk about ethics and more ethics, yes, it's important, no question about it. It's Torah-based, that's true, but that's not the study of Chasidus. The Baal Shem Tov did not come to be an adjunct to the world of circumstances at the time, which were a remnant of the 1600s, the Mashiach will come, Ruvi. What are we going to study about? Are we going to study about one ox goring another ox? We will, because the Talmud is Torah. We'll study those laws, but we won't study them just for the sake of knowing how much are you obligated to pay when your property damages someone else's property. You're obligated to pay 50% or 100%. Or what are the laws of marriage, of divorce, of Hanukkah, before there was no candle? Nevertheless, what spiritual light is there in the world that we don't see now, that we only believe? It's a glimpse of godly. Learn, all of us, Chasid or non-Chasid, when Mashiach comes. So this is Hillel, a second reason why the Baal Shem Tov brought Chasidus to the Jewish world 300 years ago. It's because we're coming closer and closer to the advent of Mashiach. So it's an enticing, Shabbos is coming. It's called Toyamin, and it's brought down this idea in halacha. So too, comes into a dark room, and the way you light up the dark room and you avoid falling and tripping and falling into even a small pit, and needless to say, a large hole in the ground, is through light in the room. So he says now, the third line from the bottom, this third word where it says, V'cheinu beruchnius. V'cheinu beruchnius. I mentioned yesterday, the last part of the shir, that there's the concept of a however, he doesn't know the inner content that's there in the Torah that he's learning. You see this word Hillel, hamevukish? The root word mevukish is bakesh, intent. The inner content of what you're learning, the mevukish or amiti, the true, that you are teaching the Torah something. That making a chidush, I'm coming up with a novelty. If I'm coming up with a novelty in Torah, I must be so smart. Needs me. Reuven, could you imagine someone saying the Torah needs me? Because the Torah on its own, it's been studied for so long, and it's so boring, and it's so stale, and it's so the same. The mitzvah secha with your mitzvahs. Through having mind be illuminated through the learning and knowledge of Torah, what's the purpose of learning, Ruvain and Shalom? What's the purpose of learning? The purpose of today, which means glue yourself to God. What does it mean? That he said it with, you could feel it, every word that he said. You felt that this man is, the mitzvah is alive in this mitzvah. He feels in making the blessing of Sfiras HaOmer that God is now commanding him. God is standing right with him and commanding him right now to do this mitzvah. You felt it. I felt it. Or another example, someone who he learned from, Rambam in the Binyanei HaUmah, right? In the big, right there in Yerushalayim. And I attended, I think it was 1989. A great insight and all that. That has nothing to do with, because that, lahavdil, a goy, a Gentile who has a good mind, give him a book of Torah in the language that they're able to understand, and they can also come up with novelties. The purpose of learning Torah is v'dabik libeinu b'mitzvah. Your heart, again I say, it's not about shuckling and screaming and shaking. That's all external. I'm not saying it cannot be through those, giving verbiage to this idea, because it's so important when we say every day before Shema, and we sing the song, in the Young Israels, they sing, it's those words that I'm referring to. I happen to lose and doing the mitzvahs through dveikus of the heart demonstrates that when you will learn, doing it as an intellectual exercise, but it was the mind's eye experience. So therefore, the two clauses of the aren't two independent clauses. One depends on the other. If you want to experience dveikus, you must have it's like someone who is walking in darkness, but you just got up and you just walked out of your apartment. But when you come into Manarat Amar in the morning and you open the doors, my father-in-law of blessed memory, he would open up the mikveh in Melbourne and later in Crown Heights at 5 in the morning. He was the one that opened it up. And I think about it always. It wasn't just because he was up early, which he was. It was because his entire life